Your story is waiting for you today. Your story has something new to say. But your story will only come out to play when you're alone. Alone. Alone in a room with invisible people.
The following episode may contain swearing. Alone in a Room with Invisible People is brought to you by hollyswritingclasses.com. Hi, my name is Rebecca Galardo, and I'm the host of Alone in a Room with Invisible People. I'm here with author and teacher Holly Lisle, and today's topic is connecting to your world building extras. I'm really excited about this topic. I think a lot of other people will be too, but before we go into it, Holly, let's go ahead and talk about what we did this week. Oh, wait. No, you've got a lot more than me. Well, I have been writing. Unfortunately, I did not make my deadline. I did not work hard enough and I let excuses take over. So I did not make the end of the year deadline, but I am still working on it. I have lowered the word count just to basically a scene, or I think it's 1,200 words. I gotta wake up. It's 1,200 words a day. And then I also have found that I have taken the story in the wrong direction. So,
all right, then.
Though I have left a couple of scenes in there, I have kind of X'd them out next to the title of the scene, and I put an X. That's probably why I tend to overplot and overplan, because I haven't, like with Leaving Wanda Lucia, I didn't run into this. I did not take the story in the wrong direction, so this is frustrating.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, maybe it's something in the air, because mine went way in the wrong direction, too. I mean, well, it didn't go in the wrong direction. It just went in a completely different direction than it had been going in.
Yeah, mine went in the wrong direction.
Okay. Well, yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's see. The less exciting stuff first is lesson 19 is done. I'm very happy. Oh, well, except that I have to write the chapter for this week. I haven't done that yet, but lesson 19 is done. And I am reading and noting stuff on Emerald Sun. I am looking for a definitive hook, which is like the essential conflict thing that you want to bring from the first book and then into the second book, where those are already done, and then to make it the perfect, what really matters about the first two distilled down into this question at the beginning of the third, which is a big series thing. And I have realized, and in fact, I just realized this instant, that the reason I'm still having problems with it is that I have not yet drawn my octopus map. So
I love that thing. Oh, I love that thing so much.
Oh, that thing got me through Longview, man. Oh, that was, God, I love the octopus map.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That saved
And
Glass House. That was
yeah,
amazing.
so how did I not even think about that? I've been busy. I've been working on other stuff. So, okay. Oh, hey, so I know what I'm doing for the rest of today, as I'm making the octopus map.
But those things are fun, too.
Oh, they are. They are. I love them. So, okay, but anyway, my big thing this week is actually the writing of Dead Man's Party, which is the novel that I'm writing for, as my demo novel for how to write a novel. And I did something, because you have to, in the course, you have to introduce all of the basics before you can get into the intermediate processes. It took me a long time, like 18 weeks, to get through all the basic stuff of novel writing. So it's 17 weeks. So on week 18, which was last week's lesson, I got to the first of the intermediate techniques and demonstrated something where you go in and you pick up things from the first 5 chapters. This is called Toys on the Floor, where you had ideas before you really knew what your story was that you're going to save because your story went in a different direction. Yeah. But there's still stuff at the beginning that was really good. And so you bring that back in, and those are your toys on the floor. And I was writing through and writing down my questions for my 5 different toys on the floor. And one of them was, how did cannibals get in this story? Because I wrote this scene, and I was answering the questions, and then all of a sudden cannibals showed up. That's what it was. Because I'm now 2 weeks ahead of that actual event there, and it was my question that I wrote down as one of my things that I needed to answer is, why are there cannibals in my book? There were not supposed to be any cannibals in my book. And as soon as I asked the question, my muse says, ooh, 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 I know. Little hand in the back of the room, waving, wiggling, squirming in the seat. Gotta tell me right now. And it's that the AI, when she could not do when she brought down the underworld. And this is all an AI book. It is a long story and stuff. But the AI, when she brought down the underworld in order to free humanity, couldn't do it slowly. She had to do it in one big, hard, fast, cut the cords kind of thing. And there were people who were playing a game, a virtual reality game in the underworld called Zombies versus Cannibals. And there was, and the hard cut did not allow them to exit gracefully. It did not allow the chip embedded in their heads to let them gradually kind of, to break out of the game, shut down the game inside, and then roll back into their regular personality. It just cut them off mid-game.
That sucks.
So now they're cannibals.
Were there any people playing as zombies, or were you?
Oh, sure. Sure,
but are there zombies too?
Yeah, well, they're not really zombies, though. See, the whole thing was, with this particular game they were playing, was to capture and eat the other team. And so you've got zombies, which had certain rules for how their bodies worked, and cannibals who had certain rules. Cannibals can be hurt, zombies can't, but zombies can be cut into pieces, and people, they just die. So, yeah, zombies can't die. So you've got these two teams that are intent on hunting down and eating each other, and because they're and a lot of people were playing this, and
wow,
yes,
that is really cool.
So now in the real world there are cannibals, and there are zombie cannibals. They think they're zombies. They think they can't be killed.
Yeah.
Fortunately, they can. But that's the only way to stop these guys, because there's no way, with the underworld down, there's no way to reprogram them.
I really want to read this book. It sounds super bizarre.
It is getting weirder by the minute, I have got to tell you. I am having fun with it, and one of the things that I discovered this week is that I want to make it funny, because right now it's very dark and very grim. And when I go back through in my revision, I want to give it a kind of Douglas Adams, Terry Pratchett sort of, smart-ass humor feel.
Yeah.
Where it's still about things that matter to me, but I'm finding the humor in it. So I think the cannibal part is the first step in that direction, as horrible as that is. So,
yeah, but it sounds, at least the way that you're bringing it across, it sounds like a more lighthearted, funny kind of book.
Yeah.
From what I'm hearing anyway. I haven't read it. So.
Right. Well, there is absolutely no humor in the first part whatsoever. Nothing. There's nothing funny in there at all. But that's one of those things where, as you understand the story you're trying to tell, it can get funnier. You just have to have characters with a different perspective on what's happened to them. The dead guy, he's definitely going to have a different perspective. Yes. Well, the book is Dead Man's Party because one of the characters is a dead guy.
Well, and that changed too, right? Originally, that wasn't the idea.
No, originally it was just the song just triggered this. Oingo Boingo song triggered this sort of, I don't know, just the artifact. It triggered the artifact, and and then it just went in a bunch of strange directions, and I'm really having a lot of fun with it now.
That's so cool.
Yes.
So yeah, let's get into today's topic, which is basically saving your story with the world building extras that we can create.
Yeah.
And the fun that ensues with them. So go ahead and take it away.
Okay. What we are looking at here is you are partway into a story, or you're just coming up with a story, and you have this sort of an empty spot where your world is supposed to be. You need something in your hand that connects you to this world in your imagination. And I have done a bunch of strange things to get into this world. For one story idea that I was coming up with, I was working on knitting socks at the time, and all of a sudden I put together this strange little pattern of stuff, just little knitting patterns, and I decided that each of these little symbols meant something, and that in these patterns, people were walking across guarded borders with these secret messages knitted into their socks. Now, this is highly impractical, because if you are a knitter, you know how freaking long it takes to make a sweater or socks or whatever. But it was just the concept of, okay, well, maybe they're faster than I am, maybe they're using really fat yarn or something, so that they can do this quicker than I can. But it was a tangible artifact from a world that I was building, and from the idea of having to live someplace so dangerous that the only way you could pass messages across borders was through designs knitted into socks, gave me this complete universe. And it's like that for me for everything. I can figure out one little item, and from that little item extrapolate a world. And that's that's the very first thing I have people doing in How to Write a Novel, by the way, is creating an artifact. But this is about connecting with your world. And I've done it with sketches for Talon and Huxbar. I did drawings of their uniforms. For Medwin's song in the Arhel novels. Took me a second to bring that back up, but been a while. I drew pictures of her and her horse and the hoose.
I feel like I remember the picture of her.
Yeah, she had this spiky thing that had that ran across the top of her head, which was to stop downward blows from the swords. But then it had feathers and stuff sticking out of the top of it. Her hair was all braided up into a semi-French braid over it to hold the armor into place.
That sounds right. Were there boobs?
There probably were. Yeah, because she was
covered, but
yes, because it was an outfit designed for riding on horseback.
Yeah, it was armor. So
yeah,
what it was not. It's not going to be like the sci-fi pictures created by men for the most part, right? Those little armored bikinis.
Yeah, no armored bikinis. No, this was actually practical stuff. But yeah, I might have in the outfit. I probably gave her boob space. Because, well, you don't want to be uncomfortable when you're fighting. You need a little bit of space there. So, that's practical. And, the fact that it would look good on a cover, well, that's practical too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you and I have both done stuff for stories. I did, oh God, I have drawn so many aliens. I have done so many little species designs for Arhel. I drew full out Kellinks and Hovies and the Clowe. That I can't believe I remember those names. But I mean, Jesus, it's been what, almost 30 years now.
Yeah.
But I drew all of them in full detail and little anatomical notes and references and how they're all six-legged or six-limbed, which is how was adapted from that world where they had six-limbed rather than four-limbed things, because the fact that dragons have wings and four legs has always just bugged the shit out of me. So, because everything on this planet bugs are different, but all mammals and all reptiles that have legs have four. It's not, or two. Birds have two legs and two wings. So if you have a four-legged creature with two wings extra, that's a completely different biological evolutionary design, and it doesn't fucking work. And it just annoyed the crap out of me. So I built these six-limbed creatures, which meant that my four-limbed human beings did not evolve there. That's not their world. And that was one of my big secrets, and anybody who had paid attention to the biology had a little poke in on that. This was no, you can't have four-legged winged dragons in the same world with every other four-legged, every other reptile on the planet and every other bird on the planet having this specific 4-point articulation. And yes, okay, little things bug me. They really do. Little tiny things like that
but
bug
it's
the crap out
cool
of me.
too that people, if they're paying attention to things and they know things, that can be like a little bit of a secret in for them. Like, this is interesting. I wonder why this is like this.
Right. Why are there two-legged, two-armed people and all the animals are six-limbed?
Yeah.
And that was a question I hoped people would ask. So, and then I only got to do the 3 books, but, because I had, oh man, again, that was the series that was supposed to be my entire career.
Now, with the artifacts and everything, what else have you created, like for Silver Door, for instance?
Oh God, okay. Maps for drawings of the houses, the drawing of the airships, which the guy who did the cover art, I drew the sort of dragon ship with the legs sticking out and the head and the tail and then the ship that it was built around, which was not what he had envisioned at all when he was reading it, which was why I sent him the drawing. And he used it on the cover, so it was much smaller than my drawing, because he said, well, I can't really make it fit the size of the actual ship, because then you have these two tiny little heads in perspective in this enormous ship, and you lose your people on the cover, which you don't ever want to do. But he had the design was from what I had sent him.
That is really cool.
Yeah, I loved that. You try and imagine how your world is different from this world, and why. And the secret behind Moon and Sun is a big one, and I have hints all through the first and second books, and I had reading through them, and you can tell that I planned that thing for 7. Because there's so much stuff I put in there that's for, okay, well, this is for, halfway through. And this is for right towards the end. This little thing right at the beginning is right towards the end. And I'm reading through it now going, oh, man.
Yeah, because then some of it you have to let go of, and then some of it you have to bring out earlier than you wanted. And I can't imagine, because in just doing Glass House, I put a whole bunch of little things in there, especially after we did the octopus map that one day. I put a whole bunch of little things here and there that I don't even plan on necessarily touching on in these 8 books that I want to do.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm hinting towards an entire world and all of the stories in the future for that. So, I mean, there'll be a small part and they'll be brought up again, but it's not this huge thing that it's going to be later on in a different series as well.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's and that's beautiful because it allows you to make your world feel real to the reader, because there are just these little hints of more going on, because in the world that you live in, there is this area that you inhabit, and then there's all this more going on all around you. And everything that's going on around you is somebody else's separate story that is as deep and intense and complete as your own. And by throwing these little things into your fiction, you give that verisimilitude towards your to your story, that it's not just this flat one-dimensional thing. It's just this and nothing more, that the world stops right outside the page. It's holy crap, I could fall into this and live there forever.
Yeah.
And this is something I learned reading Terry Pratchett. I started reading Terry Pratchett with Strata when I was in 11th grade, I think. And Strata, I might be wrong, but I think it was his first novel. And he had this flat world where guys were terraforming a world, and they were hiding in dinosaur bones in this flat earth. And I thought, that's so fucking cool. That they are building, and that's why it was called Strata, was because they were building stuff into the world to make it real for the people who are going to inhabit it.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, not only did you do that in your book, dude, but you showed how you did it. That's just brilliant. And I didn't want to be a writer for years, but boy, I was a reader, and God, I loved him.
So it seems like that's such a good thing for a. It's almost like it kind of tells you what's important to you as you continue going on and reading and learning different things, and then it's things that you bring into your own writing, which I think a lot of people they don't tend to do that.
Right. Well, it's when you're getting started, and it took me 7 years to get started, so I am pretty familiar with the process. You are trying to emulate what you like, but you're trying to emulate what you like without putting yourself into it, because you don't think what you have in you is enough to write the story. You don't think that your experiences are important enough to turn into fiction. It is only when you discover that your experiences are important enough to turn into fiction that your fiction is going to start to get good. And like I said, 7 years. 7 years of sucking a whole lot. It's just being really, really bad. And putting together pieces and starting to understand that if I was going to do this, I was going to have to do it with stuff that I loved and stuff that mattered to me, at which point I built Arhel. For maps, you have flat maps, which was what I drew for Arhel, and what I drew for Matron, and what I drew for Cat's Creek. And
yeah, you've done a lot of maps.
Oh my God, yes. And some of them I still have. I lost most of the stuff when we did that, middle of the night move.
Yeah.
But, and never did make it back to get that stuff. So, but the stuff that I have now, I still have a lot of maps. I have an entire architect's tube full of these big 6-page taped together pieces of paper, big ass drawn out maps for Matron, and for Moon and Sun, and just a bunch of different things, and Corey, and which was the Talon books, Yeah. But then I discovered three-dimensional maps.
Oh, God.
Oh, God, indeed. Three-dimensional maps, you can't do a continent. You can't do the whole wide world in flat map form because you just simply don't have time. But you can do things like a spaceship or three. You can do an entire full-scale walkthrough version of your space station. And my space station, I really need to update that and bring out the version that I've got on the computer we're on right now.
Which, by the way, anybody, if you have Minecraft on your computer, you can walk through these maps. She has them for free on her website. I will find the link and put it in the show notes. I believe I have already done this and we've already talked about it, but just in case you haven't heard those episodes or you didn't go download them, she's put a lot of work into these things.
Well, it's a little work over a lot of years.
Yeah. Because I was working at, I hadn't even met Tony when you were talking about having put together your spaceship. Mm-hmm. And I've been with Tony for 12, 13 years.
Yeah. So, it is a little work at a time over a very long time. But I keep using them. I keep going back to them because finally I get to write my world that nobody gets to tell me, oh no, we don't want any more books in that series. So, they're not selling as well as we had hoped. We promoted them like crap, but oh well, it's your fault.
Yeah.
So, they're not selling as well as I had hoped either, but I still get to write in that world. And I'm going to, damn it.
Awesome.
Yes. And I love those stories. But it is a case of being able to go through with, and I highly recommend Minecraft for this technique simply because you can go through a building. You can build a building and not know why it's there. So then you walk through and you plant these little signs in which you ask yourself questions. Why is this room here? Why is there this hidden space down at the bottom of this building? And I used in Bailey's Irish Station, in Viper's Nest, I got to finally use this thing that I had no idea what it was going to be for when I made it, where there was this hidden doorway in the diplomatic building. There is a hidden trapdoor in the diplomatic building that drops down to a sub-level of this official building. And there are horrible things down there. Absolutely horrible things. And that was part of what triggered the Longview series, what put that story in my mind of okay, so this is a place full of good people doing good things. But this isn't. This building, something bad is in this building. Oh, and the thing that actually caused me to put that down there was that I was playing in a different theme. And the block colors were all different. So I grabbed what I thought was a blue block, the dark blue that I had been using as the seals around all the other doors, the airlock seals. And I built out these things. And when I switched to my regular theme, I saw that I had built them in black rather than in blue. And my brain said, okay, so why are these different? Who made these different? What do they do that is different than the ones that are built, the O-rings that are built by the space station to protect its people? What do these do?
Yeah, so that's another thing to mention too, is pay attention to your mistakes. Maybe you want to leave some mistakes in there because your muse can play with anything.
Oh, yeah. Leave every mistake you made, because every mistake you make is not a mistake. It is a question to be answered. What is different about this thing?
Yeah, in Glass House, I used the wrong word in the description, and my muse was like, oh, shit. It was like, it was this moment of of like an epiphany where that changed a whole lot of shit.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
really cool.
This thing that just comes at you out of nowhere, writing along on my scene, and suddenly cannibals.
Cannibals, yep.
There are no cannibals in this world. Why are there can't be cannibals. This is only 2 years after the fall. How could people are not going to turn into cannibals in 2 years?
Oh my God, there was one thing in The Walking Dead that drove me up a fucking wall, and just it pissed me off so bad. And I'm not even as like I'm not this highly intelligent person like you. I mean, I've got a decent amount of intelligence, but I don't like get irritated at the things that you do, like the inappropriate use of 4 legs and 2 wings.
Wait, that's just because you're not a nerd like I am. You're a different kind of nerd.
Yeah, I am very. Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
I'm not the exact same kind of nerd as you, because I had no idea about the dragons, and now I do. It'll bother me, but I was watching The Walking Dead, and I haven't seen any of this season yet, but we were watching, I think it was last season or 2 seasons ago, and they find these people living in basically a landfill, which is smart. And they've built up these huge walls, and they've got this really cool zombie. That's the one I was painting when I started my art journey in 2016 or 17. But they start talking to them, and
Wait. The people are talking to the zombies?
No. The main characters start talking to the people that are living in the landfill.
Okay.
Because these are normal people. I don't think you know at first that they're living in a landfill. They find them elsewhere, and then they are dragged into the landfill. But they start talking to them, and their language has already broken down. Mm-hmm. They talk. It irritated the fuck out of me, because as soon as she starts talking, I yell in the house, and I startled Tony, because I remember he jumped and he looked at me. He gave me that look, but yeah, I yelled at the TV. I'm like, there is no way. It's only supposed to have been 3 years. There's no way their language would have broken down. And I was ranting, and I stopped ranting until the advertisement came on, because I wanted to be able to hear what the hell was going on. And then once the advertisement came on, I started ranting again. So Tony couldn't even forward through the advertisements. He had to just sit there until I was done. But that pissed me off, because even if it's supposed to have been 6 or 7 years in the TV series, if we're not going through the books, which is supposed to have been like 3 years or 2 years or something, language would not have fallen apart like that. It took centuries and centuries for the different Asian languages to be simplified the way that it has been, to kind of be boiled down. And even some of the Mandarin is one of the most confusing, difficult languages to learn, and part of that is because of all of the different things that have happened over the centuries. There is no way that the English language would break down within 3 to 7 years. No.
You don't even get dialects in 3 to 7 years. You don't even get accents in 3 to 7 years. That takes, 15, 20, 30, it takes more than one generation. So if you're running through generations, if you are reproducing rapidly, and you are isolated, and your older speakers are dying off relatively quickly, you can have, by about your 3rd generation, you can have a different accent, because you will have lost the original speakers.
Yeah.
And you'll have a brand new group of new speakers. And, if you have Valley Girls, all bets are off. But, because if you are intentionally attempting to break the language, well,
yeah, and sometimes it's not even an intentional thing. Sometimes you just get surrounded, and you like when I was here in school, when we went to Georgia the first time, and I started hanging out with all of these people, and I started kind of like trying to acclimate. I got an accent.
Well, yeah.
But I think a lot of it is also like, how badly do you want to belong to an area? Right. But yeah, this is completely different, but at least it's still something that goes towards fiction. It's still things that fit within fiction.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. That whole break the language because it will be cool if we have them
Yeah.
speaking a different language. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
Luckily, by the end of that area, though, they did have her speaking normally. So it was all an affectation to create this group, which I liked. I actually, and they never explained it, but once all of her people were dead, spoiler alert, and she started talking to the main character, she was talking normally. And I realized she had created this mindset. She had created this group, and part of that was the way that they spoke. And it created this kind of isolated, we are together, we are one kind of group that they needed in order to survive.
Okay,
I ended up liking that.
yeah. Well, a specialist vocabulary, that's important. I have developed those. Actually, that kind of fits in with what we're doing here, in that, or what we're talking about here, in that I have developed specialist vocabularies for magic users and for magic, for ghost hunters, and for just these different groups of people. The military does that. So that, and it changes its vocabulary frequently so that people who are attempting to fit in but don't fit in can be identified. And that's just smart. That's just, protecting the people who are doing something important from people who are trying to stop them from doing something important.
Yeah.
So that's, and, I think that language is another thing that you can build. God knows I've built a bunch of them. I built several separate languages for Arhel. The Klaue had their own language. Various groups, the kids up in the jungle, the Wen had their own drumming language, and they were passing messages back and forth between various tribes. And the citizens in the city had a language, and the Tonk had a language, and everybody had different written languages. And
The Tonk wasn't in Arhel.
Oh, no, the Tonk wasn't. Yeah, it was the Hoos that were in Arhel.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, see.
Yeah,
a little bit
you've mentioned this before, that the Tonks were actually stolen from Arhel.
Yeah, because I wasn't done with them yet. Yeah. So they got their own damn books. Because
there's so much there's just so much depth to Talent when I'm reading it, and you go into all of your books though. I don't know.
Well,
okay, I'm probably gushing the way that you end up gushing about my art. I'm probably I probably do this a lot, but with what you're talking about with the languages, I actually used your Create a Language clinic back in 2006 or 7. It was when Tony and I first got together, so it was 6 because before we moved. And I went through and I created a language specifically for these werewolf characters that I had created. They were human, but they were werewolves. So their first language was like this mixture. And I lost the notebook.
Oh.
Someone somewhere has my freaking notebook, I'm sure. But it was one of the coolest things that I had ever really done for myself at that time, because I was 23 or 20, I think I was 24. 23. And it was just, I had done a whole lot of cool writing and cool creating and backstories and all this stuff, but it was one of the first things that I had ever done where I knew that my brain actually did function, that I wasn't stupid, that I could learn to do things.
I knew that all along.
Yeah, well, you're the mom though. But yeah, it was really a lot of fun, and it gives you this feeling of creating something secret and something magical. And it was, oh man, if anybody who's listening, if you get a chance to create a language and do it properly, definitely do it, because anyone can scribble down a whole bunch of words, but actually creating a language, you kind of, again, you feel that overlord feeling of a writer.
Yes. Well, language is an interesting artifact to put into a book, because at the point where you build your own language, one of the things that I show people how to do in that is how to create concepts that don't exist in English. Because one of the things that language does is it allows you to think specific kinds of thoughts. And if there are no words in your language for those kinds of thoughts, then you can't express them to anyone else. You can't make them real in your own existence because you don't have a way to understand them. So one of the things that I did was showed people how to invent concepts that don't exist in English or in whatever language you speak. A lot of folks who speak other languages than English as a first language have taken that class. And the process, it's just a process. It will work no matter what language is your first language. But I use that when I'm world building so that I can develop cultures that are not like ours. Because at the point where you come up with concepts that don't exist in your language and your culture, then you figure, okay, well, why is this culture, why is this concept important? How do they use this concept?
Yeah.
What sort of a society has built up around it? So language is not just the words on the page. Language is this conceptual tool that allows you to think thoughts nobody has ever thought before.
Yeah.
And it's...
Yeah. That's the Hwahwa. I can't pronounce it right, but Snow Grill in Talon. You get little glimpses of his culture through his actions, and one of the languages is like they have all of these different hand gestures that Gare didn't bother to memorize, but he knew a couple of them and he wasn't sure what they were, and he mentioned he didn't know if it was this or that, and they were hilarious, the names that were given. You know, it was like woman I wanted to futter, goddess of something, I don't know. It was funny, but it gives you a view into their culture just from something so simple. So as a writer, creating a language and using those concepts and using what is important to this culture, that they would have these hand gestures to mean something, tells you a lot about the characters that you're writing.
So the other kind of map that I wanted to mention was word only. And I have done word only maps for Moon and Sun and Talon and Hawkspar and all of the Longview stuff. Where what you're doing is you don't really have the idea yet, so you're writing down, you're looking for what matters to you in the story. So you just write a word that you think might be important, and you draw a circle around it, and then you draw little arrows out, and you write words that are related to that word. And then you follow those ideas and you make other arrows and you write other words and you circle them, and it's a concept map. It's like a mind map. But it is a mind map with the specific goal of answering the question, what do I want this story to be about? Or if you're stuck, then you go in and you do this, and it's how do I fix X problem, where X, you're solving for X, where X is, cannibals, or just, anything. I didn't actually have to do that for the cannibals issue because my muse already knew. It had that loaded up and ready to go the second I asked the question. It was like, me, that annoying bastard at the back of the room with the hand up, squirming in the seat, going, I know. I used to be that person, by the way. I apologize for that. But yeah, so what you're doing is you are with that kind of mapping building an idea. And as you go through and then look at these words and ask yourself, how do they relate to each other? What about them is good? What about them is bad? How can I pull this kind of concept that I'm building into my story? Then it becomes much, much, much richer. And I still have a lot of those maps too.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's the stuff that you build. So is there anything else that you want, or anything that we've missed here, or stuff that you do
I mean, you tend to cover it like the artifacts. I'll create items. With Glass House, I made a bunch of different little things. Different areas on the maps turned out to kind of harness a different kind of energy. So different magics were stronger in those areas. The Native American tribe that I have out there have their own valley, and it kind of created this ability to isolate and keep their world going long past when a lot of the world started to change. And they had a specific treaty that meant that they were also left alone for the longest amount of time. So they are still on their original land. And that has a lot of history and a lot of magic for them. And I had created them just from like different artifacts and different ideas of how long Fulton Hills had been magic. And by creating these different areas on the map where different magics had different amounts of influence on the town, it became okay, well, there's an ancient magic and this area is kind of alive. And of course, the first people to have found it would have been the Native Americans. And it's kind of why they settled in the valley. There's a lot of creators creatures that maybe kind of live within Fulton Hills too. And I'm talking a lot about Fulton Hills. Glass House is not set in Fulton Hills. It's set in Standing River, which there is this runoff of magic from Fulton Hills that is kind of leaking into Standing River.
Right, but Fulton Hills is your big world, your
and
passion world.
Yeah, the one that I've been working on since I was 19 in little areas here and there. And the entire world, like all of Fulton Hills, the magic is an issue, and it's beginning to run off the same way that maybe a nuclear meltdown it would, So there's kind of this toxic waste spill look to the magic that is getting, out there. And that's where Standing River, when we get into the books, that's kind of where they are now. There's this influx of things that they don't understand. And
nice.
Yeah. But there's I'll do sketches. A lot of the time I actually write little snippets, and because I am so involved with the idea of Fulton Hills, it's kind of like my muse figures, okay, well, this is just another part of that world. And then it figures out how to add it. So Fulton Hills is actually pretty deep. There's a lot of depth to it. But like little snippets here and there, if I find myself not able to work on what I am currently, focused on, if I'm feeling a little bit like I don't want to write, I'll write a snippet, and 9 times out of 10, it's either a zombie snippet or it goes into Fulton Hills. And it's so weird, but
No, that's awesome. And listening to you talking about your map and about the different areas on it reminded me of the importance of maps. And most people do not appreciate a good map. I became a map junkie when I was 9 because my dad taught me how to read topographical maps and showed me the area of Alaska that we lived in and what those little lines of height and the waters and the depressions and the elevations and stuff, how that worked and how to read that. And I fell in love with maps, with a topographical map of the area around Bethel and Queethluck and north and west of there. And I have been just a map junkie ever since. But the thing that maps do that people don't appreciate is they ask the question, what is different and where is it? And if you look at any map, there are lines. There are lines on a map and there are dots on a map. And the dots show you this place is important. Yes, I know. I went into this because this is a thing for me. I went into this way, way back in How to Think Sideways.
2008.
Yes, where this is the concept of the dot and the line. The dot is something is important here in this spot. And if it's a dot, it's like a town or a city or a nuclear waste dump or the place where the gremlins live, or the haunted something, but it is something specific that is important. If there is a line, the line says there is something on one side of this line that operates differently than the thing that's on the other side of this line. If you look at the border between the United States and Canada, that line that runs across there is, what is the 54th parallel? I don't even know. But that line right there says, okay, if you go north of this line, the rules are different. All the rules are different, and medications are cheaper. If you go south of this line, all the rules are different, and medications cost an arm and a leg if you don't have health insurance.
And the same thing with different states too. But if you wanted to see a true, almost rabid and political divide within a class, the dot and the line, when it first came out, there were the people that got it, and then there were the people that did not. I was one of the ones that did not, and I'm like, this shit, I don't understand. What the hell? I don't understand this shit. And it was like this political divide between it. The other ones were like, oh, but it's so simple. It makes so much sense. And everybody else was like, fuck you. I don't get it. But yes, of course, everybody was much more polite than that.
They were. Everybody was very cool about it. But there were, and for me, because this was something that I had been trained in from the age of 9. If you get lost, this is how you find your way home. And these are the kinds of landmarks. There are areas that are depressions, and there are heights, and there's don't wander past this point. And these are, this was presented to me as, this is shit you got to understand. So at 9, I got it because I had to.
But it was also the way that you were describing it to the class, too, because
yes,
a lot of people have since understood it. It was
right,
just like, see this dot? It's important. See this line? It divides this and another dot. And everybody was like, what the fuck? What? And then the
yes,
other people were like, oh, I get it. I'm like, can I have your brain for a second so I get it too? Because I don't get it.
So I had to give examples.
Yeah.
And I thought that I had in the lesson, but even sometimes with examples, there were people who had a hard time with that concept.
Yeah.
Because it is an abstract concept. It really is. It's very abstract. Maps were a genius invention from whoever came up with them way back at the beginning of time. And the Eskimo kids that I would play with, they had this thing called a story knife that you would sit on the mud, because the part of Alaska I was in was really, really muddy. And you could take this little knife and make this smooth surface in the disgusting mud. And then you could draw images and explain how to get from place A to place B, which was a way that the people who lived there used to communicate, well, okay, this is where we're going to go. This is what we're going to do. It's like, battle plans for the hunting trip or the camping trip or the fishing. This is where the fishing is good. And so I was getting this from my father with the topographical maps. I was getting this from the Eskimo kids, where we were telling stories in the dirt but it is a form of storytelling, a map. It tells you a story, but you have to already have the concept of the map.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't use maps, have never had to use maps. So there is that leap where you go, oh, Oh, okay, okay, I get it now. But
Yeah, a lot of maps I've seen that from writers that are bored with maps or don't understand the full depth of what they can create within a map is just, okay, well, this is where my character lives, this is the street, here's another street, here's another street, this is the store that they have to use. So they draw out all of and that's fine if you need something so you know what direction, so that it makes it easier for you to visualize how they get somewhere, and then easier to explain the important parts of that in a story. That's fine. That's all I've really done for Leaving Wanda Lucia. For the world of Wanda Lucia, it was just basic maps because there's no cool, weird magic shit there.
Right.
But for Fulton Hills, I was just drawing out all of these different things. Like I put forest in there that I figured, okay, well, I'll use this later. And it became a really freaking cool forest. I think after we did the octopus map, and I went back through and I realized there was this area here that was dividing different parts. And there is a very specific place where the NoHo, which is my tribe, which it might just be a working title, but that's the shortened version of their name. The NoHo bury their dead in a very, very specific place, specifically because there is no magic in that area. The land is quote unquote dead. So I think part of it was because they were fearful of their people coming back to life, and not in a good way.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's a thing to keep in mind because it might not be your people; it might be somebody in your people.
Well, it's
something.
Yeah, it was still their people, but it had changed them. But there's just so many stories in Fulton Hills, and a lot of that had to do with the snippets that I was writing, the maps that I was creating where I did leave little areas, or because I remembered growing up, and I think I was a teenager or preteen. I was a teenager when you were drawing the circles on the map for secret texts.
Yes.
That was the magical bombs that ended up changing the world and all this stuff.
But when I drew the circles, I had no idea what it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I had learned, and I remembered that because I was there when you were doing it and when you were building everything, and I was watching. And so I didn't draw circles, but I left out things, and well, I did draw big circles that kind of intertwined. And I've since, I think, lost this map, but I still remember the concept. I grabbed one of the bowls that you had given me when I first moved out. So this is not a cereal bowl, even though Tony uses the last one that I have as a cereal bowl. It's huge. And I used graph paper like you did, and I drew out these big circles, and they intertwined in the middle in different areas too, because I didn't want them all to be perfectly
uniform. Yeah.
So there were some places where that turned out to be certain magic. So you can use any kind of magic in Fulton Hills, but there are certain areas in Fulton Hills where it's stronger, where you have a better ability. And
that's cool.
Yeah. And it's just because there's certain aspects of the land that help. Whether it's minerals, whether there's a lot of water, whether there's just a lot of fauna. It just depends on the area and what the world around is what the land is drawing that magic from. I mean, this is just from my knowledge of Wicca, from my knowledge of science in general, and the way that the different elements can affect different things. My concept of magic is more science-based, but also it's like, okay, well, how does this really work? If I'm looking at Wicca, I'm like, okay, well, why does this crystal have these aspects? So when I was building the map, I started wondering, okay, well, why does this water or why does this magic work better here? And then there are areas where when they intertwine, well, that's maybe 2 or 3 different kind of magics work really well here. The thing with the Noho Valley is it's kind of centralized in the Fulton Hills land, in that magic spot, because Fulton Hills is to the right, the valley is to the left, and then there's this big kind of natural park that's all around it. And the valley is actually in the center. And it's a very, very magical, holy spot for the Native American tribe there.
Because everything runs down and in.
Yeah. And it's really, really fascinating. And the more I talk about it, the more I feel like I don't want to write Wanda Lucia anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, where you got this whole thing that you just... Yeah, I understand. I do.
Yeah, because I know you want to write the Emerald Sun, but at the same time, you don't, because you want to get back to Katie's
space.
World.
Yes.
But that's the magic of just having created a map and also doing research.
Well, that's how your ideas wait for you too. Is if you build these artifacts and these maps and things, then if you're stuck away from them for a while because you have to do something else.
Oh, yeah. No,
then...
I was just trying to get back into the main, because I know we do tend to veer off and talk a lot. Yeah. But I was trying to get back to the main point, which is, connecting, like you said, it's connecting to your story. It's connecting to your world. And for something, we're talking in these really big, fancy sci-fi and fantasy worlds, but even for Wanda Lucia, which is a realistic world, I created Pete's Bar, which was the main character's love interest in the first book. I created his bar, and he lived above it, and he didn't have very much stuff, and he was doing fine financially, so why didn't he have all this stuff? And what is he connected to? He's got a whole bunch of Basset Hound figurines. Well, why does he have those? And it was creating a character that lived here, and why does he still live here? And as you create these little things, you start to connect to the character, you start to connect to the world. Why is it so important to him? Well, his uncle and his aunts are there, as well as his mom. And you start to kind of connect more to all of these characters too. Yeah. So it can be just something that simple, but it is a way to connect to the story, which is the whole part of the point of this. When you draw a dot, or when you draw a doodle, or when you figure out an artifact, like Holly has an entire video on artifacts. The sound is kind of bad, but it's so important. There's so much good information in there, and you can see how passionate and she is about it, and it really makes up for the sound. So we'll link that in the show notes too.
Okay.
But if you can create an artifact, or if you create dots on a map and you can figure out why, then write your snippet. Start telling a story to yourself just about that one area. Start learning the history of that one area. And maybe that history will never even make it into your fiction. Maybe that history will never be found by any of the readers. Right. But you know it, and you've connected to that part of your map or your part of your story, and that'll come through.
But yeah, well, it's like the fact that the vertebrates in Arhel that are native to the area have 6 limbs, and the ones who aren't have 4. It's a small thing, but to me it was really important because it was the whole back history of that world related to that one tiny little well, it's not a tiny little difference, it's a really big difference.
It's a big difference, but a lot of people won't even know to look for it. And when you finally get to that point and you say, well, this is why we have,
yeah, this is why the vertebrates don't look like they've evolved from each other. It's because they didn't.
Yeah, that would have been a mind-blowing revelation. For me, absolutely, it would have been like, wait a minute, what? Because your brain would have seen all of this, having 6 legs, but there's so many stories out there where it doesn't matter.
Right.
As well. that when you finally got to that point where it said, okay, well, we're not from here, this is the proof, I would have been like and yeah, I was doing the hand on the exploding head thing, but that would have been just mind-blowing.
So that we have kind of covered the benefits here, but I want to be explicit about what the benefits are and what the problems are of doing this too, because there are some problems with doing
I already
this.
know what one of them is.
So first, let's do the benefits, because those are happy. This is a great conflict generator. This gives you yes, a way to create in your story something that is not people arguing with each other and calling that conflict. This is, you've got an idea. Go ahead.
Oh, I've already got something to say. Okay, so I was talking to a girl, a friend of mine that I met from another friend, and one of her issues was conflict. She was like, how do I keep going and making it interesting? And I was like, well, give me an example. And she said, well, Harry Potter, you know how there's all of these different things, even in just one story, where the conflict keeps building. And I said, okay, what you're looking at here is there is a lot of conflict built within this world. If you want conflict to continue this way, you have to look at the world around you and, I mean, in your story, look at the world you've created and keep pulling conflict from that.
Right. Well, you know, with fantasy or with science fiction or with paranormal or with whatever it is that's offbeat that you're bringing to this, you've established that as your conflict generator. If you are writing something in the present day, it's a little tougher to find a repeatable conflict generator.
But you can do it with the maps, like you're saying.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because at the point where here's my example for this. I was doing a story, one of the romance novels that I did, one of the paranormals. And I was using our old place in Todd's Circle. No, not Todd's Circle. Think hard.
Oh, I was going to say, I love Todd's
Player's
Circle.
Place. Yeah, I love
Player's
Place.
Player's Place. Yeah, Player's Place.
Right. And I had it set in our little condo thing in Player's Place, which had, as I was looking at it, and we were living in there at the time, a very dangerous layout.
Yes. And I didn't even realize. Now, I thought this one was for Midnight Rain.
Yeah, that was for Midnight Rain. Then I used that. Yeah, I was gonna use Laurinburg for that, and then the story changed, and I ended up setting it in South Florida. I ended up sending it in Player's Place, and I ended up with this place where there were balconies on the outside.
Spoiler alert.
Yes, and these little fenced yards that shared a fence, so that you could, if you were willing to do so, crawl under one fence and to the other side, and where the walls backed onto each other.
Yeah.
And where there were two apartments and they had a wall that backed onto each other. And there were two stories, and they were very nice. I mean, it was a pretty place to live, but
Oh, I loved it.
yeah, I did too. But as I was thinking, okay, now what would I do if I were bad person?
Yes.
Because my bad guy was a bad person. And I did this weird little game that I was playing with myself, because the main character was a tarot card reader. So I had learned how to read tarot cards and was using that as the backstory. And so I said, okay, let's say she throws a reading, and I threw it out, and one of the things on one of the cards was this little secret door.
And it was the Mother Peace deck, if you're interested.
Right,
And I can see if I can find the card, because I still own it.
Yeah. But did I give you that, or?
No, I wanted you to give it to me, and you said you would, and you forgot, so it got tossed. So I bought my own Mother Peace deck.
Yeah, well, you research stuff only hangs around for so long.
Well, you already knew how to throw tarot cards too. Like you already knew how tarot cards worked, and you had different decks. And
Carrie Walters taught me.
That's cool.
Yeah, she did. It was one of the things that we were doing in the writers group. And she said, well, no, okay, here's how you do this. And I went, okay. And then I bought the book and I learned a little bit more about it. And then I used it for a character. But Let me see. Anyway, oh yes. So
Yeah, the secret
one
door.
of the things, was that this card that had a little door in the middle of it. And I stared at that and I went, "Oh my God. That's how this character is doing these horrible things." And that's how she's going to get in really big trouble and things are going to go so bad. And it was the answer to everything. Was this concept that was drawn from this real world setting that I knew. It was a map of a place that I had lived in and was actually living in had lived in. Yeah.
We were still living there.
We were still living there when I was writing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I was paranoid about living there.
Yeah. Luckily, I didn't read Midnight Rain until many years later because I would have been paranoid too. And I lived.
Oh, yeah.
I had the bedroom that was attached to the door. So I had the den and it had the sliding glass door. And when you're a teenager, luckily for the most part, even after something horrific happens, you still have this invincible feeling. So although giving me the room with the sliding door did turn out to be the right choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because Mark, yeah.
Mr. Window.
Yes. But I also had the best view in the house, just saying, because Mom took care of the little tiny 1 foot square garden, and then we had the little patio with the patio furniture and the nice little fence. But yeah, that gave me so many story ideas too, which we actually will be covering different ways to play with the muse and let your muse come out. And that is going to be another topic for another episode. But using what is around you to connect to your story is really amazing. What else did you have in there that was a pro?
Okay, right. So conflict generator, that was the first one.
Yeah.
And the second one is scene continuity, where if you have these things mapped out and you understand, you can see how pieces of your world fit together, then you will not screw up the story by having the bedroom on the second floor and then having it on the first floor and then having the bedroom window look east and then having it look west and then having all of these impossible screw ups because you're kind of visualizing it in your head, but not.
Yeah, and you don't realize a lot of people think, oh, well, I used to live here, so I won't make that mistake. But believe me, you'll still make mistakes. And if you think, well, it doesn't really matter, whether it's north or south, it not only does it matter, or nobody will notice. If you're thinking, no, that's BS. Somebody will notice, somebody will call your ass out on it, and you don't want it to be published because I know you've had a couple of things that were inconsistent and people noticed.
Yes. Oh, the big one was in the collaboration I did with Mercedes Lackey, where I was doing, I used one of my dad's weapons things to pull out a weapon that could be used as a sniper rifle. And I was very specific. I knew which gun it was. It was absolutely perfect for what I needed. And I misunderstood the foot-pounds abbreviation for the amount of damage, for the amount of weapon impact that this thing would do. And so I, in the book, expanded out what was abbreviated as foot-pounds to pounds per square foot, which is not even remotely the same thing. And this is thinking that you know what you don't know because you got it out of a book and you don't understand the concepts behind it. And boy, did I hear about that.
So there's definitely, you have to do research, but like she's saying, mapping things out makes it clearer to you. It makes it so that you won't make the mistake.
Right.
And then people won't be confused, won't call you out on it, won't.
Right.
But
And
it also makes
also-
it easier for them to live within your world.
Yeah, and you don't screw up things like having a character travel 100 miles one time over a long period of time and then walk back home, over a period of 2 days.
Yeah. Or like me and Wanda Lucia, I kept messing up the hours that it took to get from Florida to Wanda Lucia. And Matt was very, I think he was very nice about it, but I thought it was hilarious the way he wrote it too, even though it was not meaning to be hilarious. It was just kind of like, have you ever been to Florida from Georgia? To me, that was in my head because I have done it many times.
Right.
But, he's like, yeah, unless this, and this happened, it wouldn't take that long. And I was like, oh, oops.
Right. So, yeah. And so that changes the fact that there is a real specific time changes what can happen in the story, which is a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that was scene continuity. Okay. The third one is verisimilitude, where if you have built out this thing, this tangible thing, whether it's a drawing of the area or whatever, you are then capable of describing it in a realistic fashion. I did this beautiful map for the main city in Arhel, where I drew a bunch of circles, and then I had the whole thing on a hill, so that you had these walls. The circles were all walls, and I had a wall down the center, and because the mages, the guys, and the sages, who were the female mages, had a war about 600 years ago. And the city was divided down the middle between the path that was controlled by the mages and the half that was controlled by the sages. And I was able to draw it. I was able to talk about this character, Fea, who was coming into the city for the very first time by flying horse, and who saw it out of the fogs, this place of fogs and bogs, with this city rising up in the middle of all of this mist. And I could see it because I had drawn it. And
it was actually a really cool moment as a reader who had not remembered you reading her Fire in the Mist.
Yeah.
To read it and to notice it and to have been in this character's, because she was a hill girl, basically. She was kind of not a redneck, but she was a country bumpkin according to the city people.
Right.
And to have been in her character and see this city and to move through, it was a really beautiful moment. It was the way it was written and everything too.
Thank you. But yeah, that's so verisimilitude. It allows you, if you have drawn the thing, then you can see the thing in your mind and you can understand how to describe it to someone else because you can see it yourself. And, if you have gone even, more whole hog and built the space station or built the spaceship, then you can walk through in your 3D Minecraft map. Then you know how long it takes to get from one point to another. If you have an emergency and you're running from one part of the ship to another part of the ship, or if you are in the space station and an enemy attack is coming in from one side, you know what the area that's going to get hit, and you also know which side is going to be safer and where they're going to have the people put to try to protect them, because they know this is coming in. And it allows
well, you can also know, like, if you're looking at the map and you're looking at this pullback and you see the space station and you know that somebody is hitting the space station with a certain amount of force, and what the damage that the rockets or shells or magic, or, well, there's no magic in cyberspace, but what the science does, then you know what area to hit the space station at that'll cause this kind of damage,
right? And who is going to be there, who's going to die, and or who's going to, and how you want to hide something that you have happen in that area that you want to blame on something else.
Yes, I remember when I was writing one of my first screenplay fan fictions that I had written, and yes, I wrote a screenplay fan fiction. I'll try to find it and see if I can put it up. Never finished it, but it was Lost in Space. I had a Mary Sue, and I was madly in love with Gary Oldman, and I say was because I am married now, and I do love my husband, and
and you have moved on.
Well, I have to say that for legal reasons. No, but I had drawn out these space stations, and again, this is learning from watching you do things and remembering how much I loved your art, and I truly believe that's why I'm an artist today. But having drawn out these space stations, how my particular airlock worked, and this was before I realized that there was kind of a set system. So my brain invented something that had already existed, but it was figuring out the way that worked. It was a way to connect with the science and the story and figure out how it worked, but it also helps you in creating conflict, because if you like the first good thing, and I guess that kind of fit with all three. It helped with the conflict generation, it helped with getting everything right, and it helped with what you're talking about now, the whatever. I can't say it right now. Thank you, verisimilitude. I've had problems pronouncing correct words. I'm not gonna, or easy words. I'm not getting that one right today.
Okay. The fourth thing then is this is really useful for series development, because if you build out just a little bit beyond what you think you're going to need for the book, and you build like some stubs and some placeholders, like I built a connector when I was building the first part of the space station map. Bailey's Irish Space Station. I built this square, and I built away, and I filled it all up, or I didn't fill it all up. I had it about maybe 2/3 of the way full, and then I just built this little path out to one side, off into space, put a door on it, and just let it sit there and let it perk in the back of my mind. And sure enough, I started thinking about, well, what happens after all of the crap that happens in Longview, because Bailey's Irish Space Station is still there. That's remarkably hard to say, Bailey's Irish Space Station.
Yes, it is. It's a pain in the ass.
Yes, that is very hard to say. But Bailey's is still there.
That's what I always call it.
Yes, and the spaceships are tucked underneath of it. And suddenly I realized that there is something going on in the new section that creates more conflict after the Longview series. And Katie lives there. So I can use Bailey's as often as I want because she has a place there. And she might get a slightly nicer place now that she and Harrig are together. And I mean, and also that place, that older place, has the memory of Badger. Yeah.
But the cool thing too is, like you said, if you build a little bit more than you need, and you don't have to build it out, just make things larger. With Wanda Lucia, it's an entire town, and I've already mentioned the neighboring towns and the county, and that, so you've got room to grow. Right,
and you allow yourself, with every new thing you build, you allow yourself to ask new questions. Okay, there are some really cool buildings in the new section. So I will get the map up today so that folks can download the current map if you've got Minecraft. And I have been asked this before, is there any way that you can make it available for PlayStation or for Xbox?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, there isn't. There's no PC or console availability there.
Right. So no, this is strictly computer. Now I'm doing it on a Mac, but fortunately the game is built in JavaScript, so it works on Mac and PC. So if you have Minecraft or want to get Minecraft and walk around in the world and find things and do stuff, you can do that. And I have built some little secrets into it, and I will make sure that you clone in or you spawn in at the place where the secrets start. You just open the little box and read the instructions, and then you can wander around. And I made it a little bit of a game. Because
it's a lot of fun that way. And and I will say too, like, if you don't if you're looking at Minecraft like it's a kid's game, it kind of is, but there's this creative ability, and they've put so many more blocks in and design elements that it really is an amazing tool for writers to create these different worlds.
Oh, and the version that I've got that I will put up today has all of my notes in it. And if you wander around inside, you will read my notes, which are questions to myself. And this is the process I use. And I don't use it just in 3D maps. I also use it on paper where I ask myself these questions. And as you go through and read the questions, you will learn the process that I use. So there is an actual writing benefit to going in and looking around.
And if you have if you were one of the people that had left us a review and got Squick Studies was actually created from one of those little questions that she left herself, or one of those little signs. It was just a sign, no more Squick Studies. And it was in one of the areas. And she ended up creating an entire story based on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the building is in there, and the attic is all full of genetic stuff, and the basement, the basement is a little trapdoor that you have to go down, and you can see all of the areas where the geneticists are working, and the middle area is for clients, and because, people come in and they say, I want to become a tiger person, and they can do that. Or I want to be... I want to have these special abilities, and they'll go in and they'll dig around in your DNA and pull stuff from various species all around all the worlds that they have access to, and they'll build you something that'll let you become what you want to be.
So let's get on to the negative effects.
Yes,
because I know
because there are some. Yes, and the first one is the worst one. This is an awesome excuse to not work.
That's the one I knew existed. That's the one, because
yeah.
you get it's just this amazing game for writers where you get totally sucked in and lost.
Because you get to say, hey, I'm working on my writing. I'm building a Minecraft map. I'm building the world. I'm asking myself questions. I am creating my conflict generator.
I'm drawing my characters. I'm drawing.
I'm designing their costumes. I have to have this. I need this, because otherwise, how am I going to be able to describe the costumes legitimately? I'm building the language, because the language is going to give me the concepts for the later part of the book. And this is all real stuff. This is all stuff that truly works. But it can become its own, an end unto itself that keeps you from working. So we'll get to that's going to be the takeaway there. The second thing is you will get a runaway story, where you just have all of this awesome stuff. And oh my God, it's so fun. And you've put all of these different things in there, and you're building them into the story and building them into the story and building them. And all of a sudden you realize you are 200, 300,000 words in, and you're not even to the middle yet. You are just so deep into this thing, and your outline has gone insane, and everything is proliferating. If you even have
an outline,
if you even
a lot of pantsers can run into this.
No, this is hell for pantsers, because if you are doing this and you don't have a set end in sight going in,
you end up like Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the George R.R. Martin doom scenario right here, where you build and build and build and build and build and build and build, and you forget to think about how you're going to bring it all together. So that's a problem too. There are fixes for that. Okay, and the third thing is ridicule and mockery, wherein people will make fun of you because you draw your maps, or you make your little models, or you play Minecraft, or whatever. Yeah.
I don't really give a shit about that, but I know that
Some people do.
It is actually, yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with caring. I mean, I don't know. I wear my weirdness as part of me. So, but I do get a lot of comments about how strange I am. The one thing I could say is people don't think you're mature.
Right.
And that it's like you're too childish, but I don't think that that's accurate. No. I don't think that is an accurate word to describe what it is you are when you get locked into these different things.
Right. There's nothing childish about it. This is maintaining a tight connection with your creativity.
Yeah, and I think imagination for a lot of people is linked to childhood because they've had it parsed out of themselves.
Right. Right, where they have been told that, well, that's nonsense. That's for children. That you should not be using your time to, oh my God, play video. You're an adult. Don't play video
stop
games anymore.
daydreaming and grow up, or
Right.
yeah.
Right, which is the death of creativity. Your objective, if you want to be a writer, is to throw yourself into this stuff, to allow your right brain to be a kid, because that's where you get to play, because that is where your creativity comes from, is your right brain being allowed to play with concepts and language and questions. And and that's part of the fun of being alive, is allowing yourself to be creative, to be this kid, to learn new things for as long as you are alive. And if you are playing, that's part of this. If you are going into Minecraft, or if you are drawing maps, or if you are drawing pictures of your characters, that is not an immature, childish thing. That is connecting with your right brain. And to do this well, to do this so that you can create work that other people will enjoy reading, you have to connect with your right brain, because that's where all the good shit is.
Yeah.
So
what is the takeaway for today's episode?
Okay, the takeaway is, before you do all of this stuff, get your words first. Every day you go in and you do your words first. Okay?
Well, there was in our research episode, you gave a couple of different options, and one of them was to spend a month doing your research. So I think that that's a good way to look at it too, is maybe still keep doing free writing and stuff so that you're still working.
Right.
But take a month or 2 months and give yourself that deadline, and spend a month or two just world building. I mean, that seems like a huge vacation to me.
Yeah.
Not vacation as in I'm going to go relax on a beach, but vacation as in the kind that I would love to do, which is go to a city and spend a month there and just go to museums and read books on it. And it's like a fantasy world that you get to live in for 2 months.
Right. Well, I have to say, because I was always working on a contract or working toward a contract, I can build a whole world with cultures and languages and all of these, and maps and everything, in about 2 weeks.
And you can still do it while writing too.
Yeah, and I can do it while writing because I have had to. But so, this is something that if you don't have a month or two, if you are feeling the pressure of, I have to produce something, you can do this. Just do it. Just get your words first every day. So that if you are currently writing something and you need to come up with the next project, or a different project, or you really need a break from the thing you've been writing, then this can be your playtime afterwards, in which you are creating something that you will use, and that will give you a different direction in which to go, and just that will make you happy, that will make your inner child so happy. And and then the other thing is to focus on creating tangible artifacts, things that you can look at and see. Flat maps count, 3D maps count, little figurines that you build out of clay or Play-Doh, or if you like to whittle, that you carve out of wood. Things that you can see and touch, and maybe listen to. I have written songs for books. They are not good songs, and I am not a great singer, and I am a lousy guitarist, but I have written songs for books, and they allowed me to get inside the characters' heads. They allowed me to understand an important issue from the story from a different direction. And they gave me an excuse to play the guitar for a few hours. So it's just that you need to connect to your world in ways that people who don't do this will not understand. And they don't have to understand it. You know, they are looking at the end product, which is you're going to tell them a really cool story that is going to feel real to them. But the way you tell them a story that is going to feel real to them is that you first make it real for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you feel that we need to add to this at all?
I think we've pretty much got this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did a really good job in covering everything. So obviously, you know, if you have any questions or you want us to go even more in depth to something, although I can't imagine that, just you can either leave a comment at alonewithinvisiblepeople.com. Make sure you're commenting on the correct episode and let us know, or you can connect even deeper with both of us as well as the other people by joining the free forums at hollyswritingclasses.com. Just create an account and find our podcast forums and drop in. So that's one way to connect with us. Let us know if you have any questions, if you want us to go in depth on anything else. You can follow us on the socials. That's Instagram and Twitter at AIARWIP. We are also on Facebook, Alone in a Room with Invisible People. We are no longer doing the ebooks for reviews. So yeah, that's done.
But we still really, really appreciate the reviews.
Yeah, we do. We actually got 2 new ones recently, and I mean, we already feel great about doing this and connecting with you guys, but the reviews really they mean a lot to us
because they help us meet new guys, and that's that's a big deal.
The word gets out there, you know, and we also, you know, we're people, so when the reviews are good, it makes us feel good. So you can join Holly's Patreon if you are interested in supporting her fiction. That is, just look up Holly Lisle, Lisle, on patreon.com. If you want to support the podcast as a patron, we also have a Patreon there. It is, again, just look up, you can use the search for Alone with Invisible People, Alone in a Room with Invisible People, or just look up AIARWIP. If you would like to support the podcast, but not on a monthly basis, we have 3 different options. That is at alonewithinvisiblepeople.com. You can look on the top right, and it gives you 3 tiers of support. Honestly, every single dollar helps. Every little bit counts. It makes a difference, and we appreciate everybody who's already a Patreon, everybody who's already donated. We really can't express, you know, how wonderful it is to know that there are people out there that feel that this podcast is just as important as we feel it is.
Yeah, we love doing this. We really love doing this, and we love knowing that it matters to you.
Yeah,
it's a big deal.
Yeah, we love being able to hear your success stories too, and how things have something that we have said you connected to and it made a difference. So thank you for letting us know that as well.
Yes.
If you need to email us for any reason, it's show@alonewithinvisiblepeople.com. And I think that's it.
I think that is. So go live in your world now. Go make it real.
And now a word from our sponsor.
You want to write? You love words, you love fiction, but you don't know where to start or how to middle or where to finish? I do. I'm Holly Lisle, and I've been doing this professionally since 1991. And I know how I did what I did to go pro, and I'll be happy to show you what I've learned. Start with my free 3-week flash fiction class at hollyswritingclasses.com.